Recording in progress.
Good evening, everybody. It's Barbara Lagoni and Jeannie Tuvel, and we are here tonight with our very good friend, uh, Master Coordinator Dan Henderson. So I want tonight's program by giving an introduction to you about Dan. He's been a Shaklee Master Coordinator for close to 40 years, and he's developed the third largest organization in the entire company. He's an avid reader, and he is considered one of the foremost experts on the industry of network marketing. Jeannie and I pick his brain often. Tonight, he will share some of what he has been learning regarding how Shaklee is perfectly positioned for the future, how much and how fast the world is changing and how it will impact our businesses, and why the only way to thrive is to match the coming high tech with more and more high touch. Dan Henderson lives in Raleigh, North Carolina with his wife Glenda and four sons, and their families all living close by. And Dan, before we get started, could you just take a moment to share how you came to start a Shaklee business?
Sure, be happy to. So I was in Detroit. I'm from North Carolina, where I live now, and fell in love with being a radio DJ when I was 17. I was in high school. Worked for I think four different radio stations here in North Carolina. Eventually wound up in Detroit, which was the fifth largest radio market in the country at the time. And that's what I was doing. I worked for ABC there for about 13 years. And I also did network radio and TV commercials as a voice talent. That's in a small town radio station, that's the kind of thing you do for free, right? I mean, that's just part of the job. I didn't know when I got to Detroit, I had no idea that people actually got paid for doing that. So I fell in love with doing the commercial thing. So that's what I was doing. Life was really actually extremely good. I came from a very poor family. My mom was I didn't have a dad growing up, and my mom's my hero, and she was just an awesome human being. I learned a lot from her about how to work and how to get after whatever you want. And yeah, so that's a family I grew up in, and things had changed dramatically for us, and so we were doing well financially. But I had Glenda, my wife, and three sons at the time, and I didn't have a backup. I didn't have a rich uncle. Probably wasn't going to win the lottery. And the radio business is a kind of business that can be here today, and you will actually be gone tomorrow. The way they do it in radio, if you're a radio personality, is you do your air shift that day, and the program director calls you in and says, "Hey, I'd like to see you when you get off the air today." And of course, that's it, and you never get back on the air again. So you're gone, and that's just the way that industry is. So I was always concerned. And probably a lot of people can relate. If you have a job really of any kind, um, we kind of live in fear that maybe that job is going to go away. So that's where I was. And a sweet little lady by the name of Lee Drake had talked to Glenda about Shaklee supplements. I wasn't a supplement taker. I was, young and bulletproof, and I never even considered taking a vitamin. But Glenda had great results with the supplements. And Lee Drake at a party one night, it was a little get together, a group of us. She just looked at me and she said, Dan, I have no idea whether or not you'd be interested, but if you were, I think you'd be really good in my business. So I said, well, what's your business? I mean, what else can I ask, right? And she said, well, I'd love to tell you about it. And I said, well, surely. So, I mean, I think what the message there is that I liked her and I trusted her. So I was willing to listen, to have the conversation. The second part of it was, while my career in radio, and if you look from the outside looking in, it looked like I had everything going for me, the money and I mean, I was involved in everything with all the pro athletes, and so that was my life, right? So I was not a likely Shaklee candidate. So, But anyway, I said, sure, Lee, come over and show me what you got. Because I was always had sort of an entrepreneurial personality type, I think. I can't remember a time in my life when I didn't feel like I wanted to own a business. And I just didn't have, I couldn't own a radio station at that time. So what could I do, right? So at any rate, she came over, she showed me what Shaklee was all about. She left a cassette tape with me, and the person on that tape was making, he said, $36,000 a month. Now that was in the late 70s. And I thought, no way, this can't be real. And she said, no, it's real. So check it out. So I did. Turned out that he literally was making 36,000 a month. So I thought, hey, I'll check out the company. And if it's the real deal and I could make 5,000 a month, I would have, I'd at least have that backup. So she showed me what Shaklee was all about. I knew the product was good. And then she talked to me about residual income, the model. I love that. And so we decided to jump in and went down and bought some inventory, which we had to do in those days, and put it on some rickety shelves in my basement. With so anyway, that's how I got started. I could go on about that all night. So that's it. That's the short version.
Thank you for
all right.
That. So
yeah,
you can pull up your slides when you're ready, and we'll be
okay.
running.
We see this well?
We need to go to full screen.
Oh, full screen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, for me, this is full screen.
Okay.
So Jeannie's saying she sees it well, right?
Okay, good. Oh, yeah.
So no, this is full screen, Barb.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, so just before this call started, I changed the first slide and I put this slide in. And this is Stephen R. Covey, who wrote the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. An extraordinarily talented man, one of the great books ever written. And here's what Stephen said. I attended a businessman's luncheon in Detroit. He was the guest speaker. He stood up. I didn't have any idea who he was. And this is how he started the meeting that night. This is it. He didn't say, hello, how are you? Glad to be here, or tell his Shaklee story. He started with this line right here, and I've never forgotten it. If you want to make small changes in your life, change your attitude and change your behavior. And if you want to make quantum leaps, you have to change your paradigm. Now, that was 20 or 30 years ago, when the word paradigm then we all talk about what that's about. In essence, what Stephen talked about for an hour and a half was change your attitude means obviously be more positive, right? Change your behavior means work harder. So you can do both those things, but if you have the wrong perspective, if the way you see things is wrong, then it doesn't matter how hard you work or how positive you are, you're probably not going to get to where you want to go. Like Jeff Bezos said, he said, perspective is worth 80 IQ points. And I take from that he means, you can be a genius with the wrong perspective and not do very well, right? Or you can be sort of average of intelligence, but with the right perspective, you can do extraordinary things. That's what this little talk tonight is about. It's about a paradigm change, about a perspective, about how we see Shaklee in the next hour, that maybe in a way that we didn't see it before. So back to the original first slide. Goodbye 9 to 5, hello work from anywhere world. And this says pretty much everything right here, that the 9 to 5 40-hour work week is basically gone. And we can now work from anywhere in the world, and that literally changes everything. I love this from Seth Godin. Seth's a genius. I get an email from Seth Godin every single day. I capture every one of them. And I just made this note of it, 2,630 emails that I have stored from Seth Godin. That's an education, right? Just a brilliant man. And I love this question. When exactly were you brainwashed into believing that the best way to earn a living is to have a job? And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Were you taught this roadmap for success? I know I was. The idea, of course, that we were all told is to go to school, get a job, climb the ladder if you can, retire, and hang on. Now, where did that all start? To answer Seth Godin's question, here's where it came from. From the three previous industrial revolutions. The first one, of course, in the 1760s, we had steam power and mechanization. Now, as you look at these three photographs, just imagine, think about how far we've come, the difference between where we are today and in the days, people had to get super, super excited about steam power. I mean, that changed the world in the 1760s. 100 years later, in the 1890s, it took 100 years before we got electricity, and then, of course, mass production and the 8-hour work shift. That's where it's really came from. Henry Ford, he didn't invent the assembly line. A lot of people think that he did, but he really didn't. But what Henry Ford did invent is 8-hour work shifts. And he figured out that if you had 3 shifts, you could do it for 24 hours a day. You could run 24 hours a day, running those automobiles through the assembly line. So that's where it started. The whole factory process, what did it require? Jobs, people to show up to work those 8-hour shifts. So that's when this whole 8-hour, 40-hour a week job plus got started. Now, 100 years later, we get to the 1980s, and now the computer generation starts. The digital revolution starts. This is just the very beginning. And this photograph, I'm sure you all understand, is the guy standing up is Steve Jobs, and the guy sitting down is Steve Wozniak. Now, Wozniak was the guru. He's the guy who built the first Apple computer. Steve Jobs didn't build that computer. What Steve Jobs was a visionary. Steve Jobs was a marketing guru. He was a salesperson, right? So if Steve Wozniak, as brilliant as he was, had been left to get the Apple computer into the marketplace, we wouldn't have Apple Computer today. It's really important for us to understand that this is how that whole process got started. So the job formula that we were all taught, many of us still live today, 250 years later, was created and perfectly suited for a world that no longer exists. So that's the key point of this entire discussion tonight. A world that no longer exists. And as I go through this, you'll realize that is really, really true. So why is that? That's because the fourth industrial revolution is where we are right now. We're already here. It's not coming, it's here. And it's all about artificial intelligence, automation that will have a devastating impact on jobs. So kind of cute, this little robot that somebody put together here, kind of cute, right? But it's deadly serious. And this little quote, I don't know if you can see it down at the bottom. It says, "Hi, just thought you should know I'm coming for your job." And they really are. This is unique. I saw this today and I thought, I gotta include this in these slides. These are images from the Hen-Na Hotel in Japan. This is real, right? This hotel is fully automated with just a few humans, but mostly with robots. So the cute little guy in the middle, that is their version of Siri, called Churi-chan. And Churi-chan is the person you talk to if you want to turn the lights down low or you want somebody to bring food or whatever. But it is some unique thing. And when I was reading this article, what I thought was really it was hilarious actually is that they actually had some serious problems trying to get this thing moving in the direction that they wanted it to go. Because the automation wasn't perfected yet, and people would snore in the middle of the night, and Churi-chan would think they were giving them some kind of a command, so and wake them up. Anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. Okay, so as many as 800 million jobs are going to be disrupted by artificial intelligence. When? before 2030. How fast have the last 9 years gone by? We're talking 9 years from now, a disruption of 800 million jobs. So the question is your job safe? I'll tell you how you can find out. And this is simple research. You just go on, you just search for what jobs in this fourth industrial revolution, what jobs are considered safe, and what jobs are considered at risk. For example, if I were an accountant, I'd worry. Go away. So it would be a really a smart thing to do is to go on and find out if whatever it is that you're doing for a living right now, whether or not you think it's going to be disrupted by artificial intelligence. This guys is serious stuff. This is from the McKinsey report, and I've quoted all of these quotes I've sourced so that it's not coming from me. Now this I just had to. I had to show this. I read this. I thought, so cute. So meet Ella. She's starting the first grade. And by the time she graduates, she and 65% of all first graders who start this year could end up working in a job that doesn't even exist today. That's how much and how fast things are changing in huge ways. This is Naya. She's using Apple's newest technology. It's gorgeous. I took this screenshot from the Apple website. That's the new iMac. And it's Apple's very latest technology. But here's the thing. I know a guy who has a nephew who is in the computer division, or he's an engineer at Apple Computer, who tells him that Apple is 12 years ahead of technology of where they are now. They're 12 years ahead in technology of where they are. So what we're looking at here is outdated already. That's how fast and how much technology is changing. This name Naya, by the way, I looked this up, and Naya is Swahili, and it means purpose, which I just thought was so cool. Now, so let's jump into the 5 mega trends that are going to impact everything about our life: how we live, how we work, how we choose to create wealth, whether or not we even have a job. What are we going to be? What's the world going to be like in the next 10 to 20 years? Pretty fast. Technology, wellness, millennials, gig workers, and e-commerce. So let's go through them one at a time. Number one, obviously, technology and the internet. That didn't exist just a few short years ago. This technology is changing everything. Email didn't start until 1995. Pretty amazing. But today, if you've got a cell phone, a laptop, and an internet connection, you can work from any place on the planet, and it's changing everything so fast. So the COVID-19 pandemic has really amazingly changed everything in a way that nobody expected. As I think Barb said before we even got on this call tonight, the COVID situation has ramped up the digital transformation in such a way it wasn't expected to work. Companies were slowly letting people work from home, but you'll see some statistics here that I just think are just so amazing. So now we've got offices closed around the world. Shaklee has one of the most incredible buildings, home office buildings in the world. And I was talking to Kathy Keating just a couple of days ago, and she was telling me how few people actually are in that building, actually work there on a daily basis. And it's happening with companies all around the world. And it's just a big challenge. So in 2019, the question is, how did we survive COVID from the technology point of view or from the business point of view? Obviously, from a health point of view, it's devastating. But we are so fortunate that we had this technology available when COVID came along. 10 million people used Zoom in 2019. 10 million. And that sounded like a lot, right? In 2019. But today, it's 300 million people use Zoom every single day. Now, they make the distinction that it's 300 million participants because some people obviously use it more than once a day. The Zoom mobile app was downloaded 485 million times in 2020. So, as a result of the success that Zoom has had and the idea that we're not going to go back to the way it was, never, ever, ever is it going to go back to the way it was. Companies like Google, they have a conference technology called Google Meet. Microsoft has one called Microsoft Teams. Cisco has WebEx. That was actually the first that I remember. And Apple, of course, has FaceTime. All of these companies are working overtime to ramp up their technology because they know this is what's going to be going on now for the foreseeable future. So here's a guy that those of us in Shaklee are not particularly in love with. His name is, he's the richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos. But I do love this line, right? Here's how he described it. We've all just walked through a one-way door. It's irreversible. It's permanent. This is the future. After working from home for 15 months, the next challenge is to figure out how to get people back to the office. That is the biggest challenge now companies have. These are the top 3 reasons why, according to Inc. magazine, people don't want to get back to the office. Number 1, no, not even close, is commuting, which people consider an amazing waste of time. Number 2 is the stress, office politics, and a stat that I just read a couple of days ago that tells me that 57% of all the people who quit their job is because they don't like the boss. That's number 2. And then number 3 in the overall survey is daycare. And when they surveyed only the women, there wasn't even close. The women said by far, I just hate it every day when I drop my kids off at daycare. So if I could work from home and raise my kids, that would be fantastic. So those are the top 3 reasons. Now, I did some screenshots instead of just having quotes that I think are super powerful. This company called Salesforce, they, by the way, are the company, they are huge. And they create now all the Shaklee technology, the apps that we use in Shaklee, the mobile apps, that's Salesforce. Salesforce declares the 9-to-5 workday dead. And when they say it, you know, you sort of need to listen. They know what's happening. We'll let some employees work remotely from now on. That means forevermore, right? It's no longer makes sense to expect employees to work an 8-hour shift. So the 8-hour shifts that started back in the 1860s, we needed, right? We needed those factory workers, but today it's just a totally different world. This is from Fortune magazine. Is the 9-to-5 office routine dead? Here's what workers want. In their research, they show that 83% of workers prefer the hybrid or the fully remote work from home or work from anywhere situation. That means 17% said, yeah, I'd prefer working at the office, which makes sense because if you live in a 1,000 square foot apartment and you got 3 kids, you don't want to be working from home, right? So pretty amazing. Hybrid, of course, it's pretty obvious what that means. That means, you know, a few days maybe at the office and the rest of it at home. And fully remote means exactly what that is. No more office. This is from Bloomberg News. Amazon wants office workers back 3 days a week in September. 3 days a week. And they feel very, as you read the article, and you can look these articles up, right? They feel very fortunate if they can get them back 3 days a week. This was my favorite. Apple staff resist the call to return to the office 3 days a week. Now, this building that you're looking at down here was developed and designed by Steve Jobs, and this was like his swan song. They spent $5 billion to create this workplace. It is spectacular, right? Now, Tim Cook and Apple is having an incredibly difficult time getting people, it says, resist the call to return 3 days a week. They don't want to go back at all. And I mean, if you got to have a job and you love technology, and they clearly do, I'm a big Apple fan, right? Not a bad place to go to work, and they're resisting it. By the way, Apple just announced they are going to have offices here in Raleigh, and they're going to hire 3,000 people, and the average salary is $185,000 a year. So not a bad place to work, but people are resisting just 3 days a week in the office. Just a few others, 60% of the workforce will be mobile by 2024. That's the International Data Corporation's guess. Huge number, 60% by 2024. 90% say they intend to work from home for the rest of their careers, from Forbes. Again, from Forbes, 78% of the people they interviewed say they will not take a job that doesn't allow them to work remotely. What's really interesting about it is now that people have the ability, which I mean, wouldn't everybody want to live this way? I mean, pretty much everybody want to live like a Shaklee distributor, with all that freedom and flexibility. People just never had the option. The only option they had is 9 to 5 and get the check. Now, 78% say they will not take a job unless they can do it remotely. So corporations have always had all the power. They have all the leverage because they're the ones who are writing the check. But today, people, you and me, because we can work from anywhere, we can call the shots in many ways, and we just have a lot more leverage than we ever had before. Up to 66% say they would happily take a pay cut if they could work from home. The original stat I had was just a flat 25%, but I looked at some other information, and I won't get deeply into how they came up with this number, but up to 66% say they take a pay cut. Now, I think pretty much everybody I know would like to make more money, but it's the ability to have the kind of freedom that working from home or any place on the planet, now that we have the internet. I think there are like a little more than 7 billion people in the world, and 4.5 billion of those are connected. So it doesn't really matter where you are, and it's changing everything in a big way. I love this quote. It's not that people hate the office. They just never understood what a great thing it is to have this level of freedom and flexibility. Now they've had it, and now they don't want to go back. Shift number 2. This is really important for us: health, wellness, and self-care. This is who we are, right? Some new numbers here. On our previous slide, the ones I did last week, it showed that there were more boomers than millennials, but the latest information is that there are currently 72.1 million millennials and 69.56 million boomers, ages 57 to 75. So there are now more millennials than there are boomers, but collectively, they're spending a total of $4.7 trillion a year on wellness. Now, many of us that are on this call, I know for sure, were in Chicago when Paul Zane Pilzer spoke. He had written a book called The Next Trillion, and many of us used that book to talk about our industry. And the next trillion is going to be one day it won't be too far off. The wellness industry will be $1 trillion a year. Well, we've blown past that, and it's growing like crazy. I've got some stats I think you'll love, right? But think about this now. The millennials make up now more than half. Millennials and under. This is from Global Wellness Institute. The worldwide wellness market is growing at an all-time high historic rate, almost twice as fast as the global economy. This is in 2019, before the pandemic, of course, right? And it probably slowed down, but now it's back on fire. So it's at an all-time high. I mean, it's just the worldwide wellness market. Why is that? This is from Health World. It says how wellness industry has emerged as a thriving sector in the past 10 years. And here's what they say: growing consumer awareness. Now that's because, we can't depend on people not to know what's available and what's out there, right? Because you can just do a simple search and you can pretty much find out anything you want to know. So the consumer, the people that we talk to, are more aware of products, what's available, and what they do than any time in history. Increasing disposable incomes, we got more money to spend. And this one, a big one, a desire among millennials to transform their lifestyles for the better. So that's why it's happening. So the growing Shaklee markets. Obviously, nutritional supplements. Every single one of these markets is growing and will continue to grow for decades to come. Nutritional supplements, protein supplements alone, 36.5 billion. Sports nutrition, and this one I added today. This is physical activity. This is from the Global Wellness Institute. Now, this is about anything physical, any kind of physical movement, things you can do. It could be Tai Chi or whatever it is, but it's an entire industry. They predict will be $1.1 trillion worldwide by 2023, just a couple of years from now. Weight loss industry, 72 billion. Shaklee has just announced that we are now in the collagen business, and they have a new collagen product coming. The prediction there is a $22.6 billion market by 2027 and growing. Clean care and personal care, 36 billion. Chemical-free cleaners, 156 billion. So every single market that we're a part of is growing. So we are absolutely in the right place at the right time as a result of where the world is. Millennials, this is shift number 3. Some people call them Generation Y. But according to Forbes magazine, this quote says they are the most mobile, connected, health conscious, entrepreneurial, and environmentally conscious generation in history. Couple of key points. Number one, they are more than 50% of the population now. Number 2, the most spending power of any generation in history. They spent $1.4 trillion in 2020. These are not kids. Some of them are young. Their age is 25 to 40. So the leading edge would be the 40-year-olds, but the trailing edge, the 25-year-olds, are very, very tech savvy. They have lots and lots of money to spend, and I'm going to show you some stats on how they're spending it. But here's an amazing stat I thought. It projected that they will be 75% of the workforce by 2025. So whatever it is that the millennials love and want and believe in, and what's important to them, we need to pay attention to. That's the point of this, right? So we know that the 25-year-olds were born into technology. So they get it. They don't know a world without it. Some 40-year-olds, maybe not a little bit, right? But now we're entering a world in which everybody pretty much gets the whole technology thing and is using it. What more than 80 million millennials value most? This is from Fidelity. Number 1, huge work-life balance. They don't mind working hard, but they want other things as well. So if they're going to go, you look on the right-hand side of the screen at the top, a purpose-driven company. What this is saying is that millennials, by the way, the last thing they want, if you go down the list, the last thing they want is a job. The 9 to 5 for them, that's just not going to happen. It's over. But if they're going to have a job, they want to work for a purpose-driven company. That's important to them, that has a positive impact on society, and work in a collaborative culture. Now, on a personal level, they prefer texting to email. We'll talk about that. They prefer ownership, not 9 to 5 jobs. They block 80% of all ads. Millennials will do anything to avoid being marketed and sold to. Look at this stat. Only 1% of millennials trust a brand's ads. 99% don't trust the ads that the brands that are talking to them, they don't trust it. But 92% trust recommendations from their friends. This is a really big, important factor. It's a huge thing to know. So I did this screenshot today. A look at how millennials spend their money. I'm going to go through this quickly because I could be here all night doing this, but this is good. Here's what they spend their money on: convenience. They pay for rides and they pay for food. They're good with that, right? The online shopping, 60% of them purchase online. Debt payments. This is huge for the millennial generation. Obviously they owe a lot of money in student debt. They owe $1.1 trillion in consumer debt. They need what we have to offer from a business point of view. Food away from home. Millennials spend 47% of their money. This is a misspelled word anyway, on food delivery. And so anyway, experiences in travel, they average taking 5 trips a year and spend $5,700. Social impact, they purchase from brands that make an impact. Spend less, they spend less money on cars. 88% live in metro areas. They spend less money on clothes. They'll use coupons when they can. Housing, 15% still live at home. And retirement. This will blow your mind. 66% of millennials have zero money saved for retirement. 66%, not a dime for retirement. Most of all, they value connection. They spend 5.7 hours a day, 56 days a year, if you add it all up, connected to their phone, and they check their phones 150 times a day. Now, we think, okay, well, that's the millennials, 5.7 hours a day. But we also see here that boomers and Generation X are connected 5 hours a day. So it's not like the whole world's not, tied to their phone. And did you know there's a word for the fear of being detached from your phone? And I've talked to people about this and, just on the side, just kidding with them. And they say, yeah, it's called panic. But there really is a word, and it's called nomophobia. You can look that one up, right? Because people are attached to the phone. I know I am. Got mine right here, just in case. 8 trillion text messages are sent every single day. 8 trillion. 15.2 million per minute. That's obviously more texts than email. So texts are in, email is out. Millennials, they don't like email. So here's some things you ought to know about text messaging. 230 million Americans own a smartphone. Now this is just a huge number. Everybody's got a smartphone. 85% prefer text. 55% totally ignore emails. So if you're not able to get in touch with somebody you'd like to get in touch with, or they don't respond, send them a text. 90% open a text within 3 minutes after they get it. 90% within 3 minutes. Texts have a response rate of 45% compared to emails, only 6%. Globally, 68.1% of all website visits in 2020 came from mobile devices. 79% of smartphone users made a purchase online with their phone in the last 6 months. So this one survey defines millennials as generation mute. Which of the following situations would make you avoid an incoming phone call? This questionnaire to millennials. Time consuming, 75%. A whiny, needy person, 64%. And I could go on and on and on. But the point is, the millennials are, I have a bunch of grandchildren, right? And I have never had a phone conversation with any of my grandchildren. They don't talk to me on the phone. A lot of texting back and forth, but they don't talk to me on the phone. And guess what? They're not talking to anybody else on the phone either. And we could talk all night about the why that's such an important thing, that they're missing out on the interpersonal skills that they should develop through all this conversation. But they're not doing it, right? And so if you're going to text, if you want to reach a millennial or almost anybody else these days, especially for business, by the way, which we haven't thought much about, it's text messaging. Now, so this is number 4 is the gig and freelance economy. By 2027, the gig and freelance workers are going to outnumber those in 9-to-5 jobs. Shocking. There will be more people doing gig work delivering pizza or whatever you do for the gig, and people who do freelance work than there are people who actually have a job. I just find that just shocking. But they can, they're going to do it because they can. They don't want to go to the office and they're not going to, right? Down at the bottom right, and I know that on these slides, depending on what you're viewing it on, you probably can't see it, but these words are Upwork, 99 Designs, Fiverr, Elance, and Freelancer. These are companies that are in the freelance business. In other words, you can call them or go online, not call, they probably couldn't call them, but you go online and you can hire these freelance people to do anything you want them to do. If you want to create a PDF, if you want to create a website, whatever it is that you want to do. I'm talking high level, super talented people who are working on a freelance basis, maybe doing it in addition to their job, but that's the new world. That's it's happening. Gigs, or what some people call a side hustle, not my favorite expression. And freelance work is flexible, which is what everybody wants. But there's just one problem. These are one-time transactions. You do the gig or you do the freelance thing, you get a check, right? But that makes them risky and unstable. I can relate to the freelance piece because that's what I did as a part of my career. And I actually was doing very well as a freelancer, doing voiceovers, and I made more money there than I did at my radio job with ABC. So I quit my radio job and became a full-time freelancer. And trust me, when you do that and you have a family, you start to think about whether or not the phone's ever going to ring again, right? Fortunately, it did. But the people today want the flexibility, they want the freedom, but it is risky, it's unstable. So what's the alternative, right? That's the question. What are you going to do? If you don't want the 9-to-5 job, you just absolutely aren't going to do it. You're not going to fight that traffic, or you want to be home with your kids. And you know that the side hustle freelance gig work is not going to be substantial. What do? Ownership is now, as they say, a thing. The digital revolution has brought radical change. Young entrepreneurs, they are rewriting history. There are more young entrepreneurs today. Every single day, the number of people who start businesses goes up, up, up. And a lot of that obviously is the network marketing business model, because it's pretty darn hard to beat the model that we have. In the US, when asked to agree or disagree, these are, by the way, the highest numbers ever recorded for this question. 69% of men and 58% of women agree with this statement. I'd rather take the risk and build my own business than work for somebody else. So that'll tell you a couple of things, right? It tells you, number one, how tired people are of the boss in the job in the 40-hour work week and all of that stuff. But this number, 58% of women agreeing with this statement, it was the most shocking part as I read this article from the New York Post. It's just never been anywhere close to that high before. People want to own a business. Now, this is shift number 5 and the final one. This is all about e-commerce. And Shaklee is now an e-commerce company because we have the tools to do it. Uber, the world's largest taxi company, doesn't own any vehicles. Facebook, the world's most popular media site, doesn't create any content. Harry's and Dollar Shave Club make no razors. They are doing a number on Gillette for sure. Airbnb, this is amazing. A couple of young boys in San Francisco rented out a couple of air mattresses, and that started Airbnb, is now worth more than Marriott, Hilton, and Intercontinental combined. And they don't have any real estate, purely an online transaction. So something interesting is happening. There's no doubt about that. That's from Deloitte. 88% of the adult population purchased online in 2020. Global online sales are expected to reach $4.9 trillion in 2021. So those of us who were afraid to give somebody our credit card are no longer afraid, apparently. In 2025, in the US alone, We're expecting 30 million shoppers and $536.4 billion in sales. So e-commerce is here, it's happening, and it's happening so fast. This is truly unbelievable. And I'm really grateful that Roger Barnett, and of course, I'm sure he knows a lot more about what's going to happen in the world than I do. He didn't need to do all this research like I did. And but they've spent a lot of money preparing us to be able to have the tools that we need to do our business in this simple way. Talk to somebody on our phone, have them uh, enroll on the phone, run your business on the phone. It's just incredible. This is the one app, the latest one, Shaklee M-Commerce. M stands for mobile, of course. So these apps that Shaklee is creating is going to empower us to be able to do our business in a simple way, like the rest of the world is going to do. If you're not doing this, by the way, right? What's going to happen to your business if you're not doing this? What's going to happen? Let's say, for example, that you have a challenge with your job and you don't know what in the world you're going to do. So you decide, if you started, would you start a brick and mortar business today? When 95% of all shopping is going to be online, not 50%, 95%. So what kind of business would you start? It better have an e-commerce factor. You better look, guys. I mean, this is never ever going to go back to the way we did our Shaklee. The part of our Shaklee business that makes it so unique, and what is so great about what we do, that, by the way, is never gonna change. And that's because, look, things change, people don't. Interpersonal relationships. There are three reasons why people stay in network marketing, right? Number one is because they fall in love with a product that works for them. And we are certainly proof of that in our business. Number two is money or the potential to earn money. And number three is relationships. And we should never, ever, ever underestimate the power of the relationship, because people, no matter how many, and they found that out at the Hin-Na Hotel in Japan, when they only had basically a handful of human beings, right? That they really lost like almost 50% of their business pretty darn quickly, because we want to talk to each other. Human beings want to connect with each other. It's really super important. And these tools, these apps, they're just a way for us to make it simple. So in the future of the network marketing industry, in the future of all businesses, you're going to have to make it super simple, and you're going to have to make it really, really easy. I read an article in the Washington Post, and one of the things that millennials don't like is breakfast cereal. And you know the answer they gave? It's too complicated. Imagine that, right? It's not easy enough. So when we complicate our business, we're driving away the people that we need to grow our business into the future. We are so positioned, it's just truly unbelievable. We have everything people want. And what we really have in spades, what really makes our business awesome, is the relationship piece of it. That's what really makes it fly. The number of people in the US who use social media to inform their decisions. That means they're talking to their friends to find out what they should and shouldn't buy, is expected to increase to 94.3 million by next year. And that's a 75% increase. Now, I know that those of us who are not millennials, and that's certainly me, not a boomer either, but we are not in the social media business. This is not who we are. It's not what we've always done, and we're not focused on it. And so we find it, we're just not in love with the social media, right? So we just kind of tend to, kiss it off, right? Not do it, not be involved, not even think about it. And it's a mistake to think that if the millennials and now may, and by the way, the younger generations after the millennials all still want the same thing. I mean, they're more into technology than the millennials. If if we make a mistake, if we don't understand that's what they want to do and that's how they're going to do it. So what we need to do is Ross Early, that many of you know, probably most all of you know, and some don't, is a first level master coordinator in our organization, said this one cool thing one time, and I've just have never forgotten it. He said, in talking about the business, you don't have to be a superstar, just find one. So let's talk, translate that into the social media. You don't have to love social media. Find somebody who does, right? So let's go find some people who really get it, who really know how to do it, and because that is the future. And no, it's not just social media, that is for sure. There's always going to be room for person to person, friend to friend conversations that drive our business. But social media is a big part of business today, period. So, what does all this unstoppable change mean for you and me? Because technology will only accelerate. The best way to survive and thrive in the new game, I just love that new game piece, right? There's old game, new game, right? Is to take advantage of the digital revolution and build unbreakable relationships based on longevity of relationships. It's built on conversations, one conversation at a time. And you never know when that next conversation, we have no idea what that might turn into, right? But building unbreakable relationships is the key to survival and thriving in our particular business. And we need to use some of these digital revolution tools. I mean, it's really not complicated. Really, it's a telephone and it's a laptop and a website. So it's not that hard. I mean, that's what we're all doing today. So final slide. Shaklee, a business perfectly suited for our new work from anywhere world. And I think we are. So I'm excited about our future. So
Oh,
that's it.
I am too. Thank you, Dan. Oh gosh, this is just terrific. So I'll give Jeannie a chance to click the recording, got a girl. And Dan, we want to be respectful
Recording
of
stopped.
your time, but if people have some questions in the chat that they want to ask you, there was one.
Oh,
that-
Well, I'd like to say something, Barbara.
oh, you are there. Oh,
Yeah,
good. Oh, good.
I'm right here. Yeah.
Okay.
I would just like to thank Dan because I think all of us know that these are the trends we've been hearing about. And it's just I'm just so grateful that you put this all together for us, in a very concise, I call it a footnoted way. I don't know if footnoted is even used anymore. But I also think that whenever I hear you speak, Dan, and especially as you did tonight, it just gives me the confidence of where our company and our future is,
Right.
and that's really reassuring for many of us who have been with Shaklee so many years. So I just want to express tremendous gratitude because you've done this for the whole field. And I just believe that if we take some of this information that you've given us, we can think of so many people that this would bring value to. And that's really what's so incredible. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, Barbara's heart, and obviously everybody who's commenting for the time and effort that you did. You're tremendously gracious to all of us. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Jenny. And I appreciate that, Jeannie. I really do. And I want to tell everybody that you spent the last 2 weeks taking care of your grandkids. And I can't imagine how many Shaklee vitamins you must have taken in the last couple of
My
weeks.
PV is going to go up a lot, I can tell you that. But thank you. So now let's turn it over to some Q&A. Barb, if you want to handle that. And
Yes, lots of thank yous coming in. And and I think, Dan, you probably answered this for one of the questions that came up from Michelle was is figuring out how to balance. She said, I wonder if people, oh, well, let's see, let me get her first question first, which was, it seems like people are really zoomed out and are craving in-person contact, which
Yeah.
is what you just dealt with. Do you think the need for community might override the takeover of strictly online formats?
Okay, that last part, Barb, I didn't really hear. People are zoomed out. I heard that part.
And she says, do you think that the need for community might override the takeover of strictly online formats?
I'm not really sure I understand the question. Do I think that community will overtake?
Right.
I mean,
So Michelle, right. So
well, let me just say that I don't, I think I said it. I mean, obviously, if all we ever did was Zoom calls, I mean, that's not the A plan. I don't think anybody wants to do that. I mean, I think as soon as you can, I think you need to be talking to another human being. That's what people want, is human connection. And so that's what I think. I mean, we plan to do that in my office, is to start having some conversations and with people who show up at the office. So if somebody feels comfortable with doing that, I would never, I would, if I can, I would always work with people one-on-one and have those conversations. So I don't think you have to Zoom everything. No, I don't know if that really answers that question, but
totally.
so we just got to remember, look, it's about people. It's about people. That's what it's about, and it's just, that's why we're still in business, right? Shaklee's got a great product and we have a great history, and that's it's a great story. But look, would you want to go on a journey with somebody that you don't really like? And the answer is obviously no. And we're asking people, particularly when we're asking them to take a look at our business or come into business with us, that's what we're saying, is we're saying, come on a journey with us, with me, right? We're going to do this together. So the relationship factor is by far, in my opinion, is the single most important. It's far more important than any stat or the fact that Dr. Shaklee had his first product on the market in 1915. All those things are important, but what's really important is the relationship. That's what people hunger for. And so that's how I see that.
Oh, it's a perfect close to this, because it's always at the heart. In fact, I feel for the millennials a bit, because sometimes they're so connected in their technology that they've lost their ability to talk to people and
Hmm.
ever have a conversation on the phone. And so there are just some conversations that have to happen ear to ear and person to person. So those are
Yeah.
skills we want to make sure we're not losing. Oh gosh,
Well,
you're wonderful.
I've said, many times that our business is built, it's your business will rise or fall one conversation at a time. And you never know when that you are one conversation away from finding that next business partner that you really want to team with to grow into the future. And that it takes the connection to be able to do that. So if I were going to advise people on, what I think that they should spend their time learning about, is if they don't have good people skills, right? I just recommend they work really, really hard at that, because if you don't have social skills and relationship skills, the business is going to be very, very difficult. Yeah, you can get lucky, there's no doubt about that. But even get lucky, you got to talk to people, right? So yeah, I would study things like there's a book that I've recommended to a whole bunch of people. Every chance I get, I recommend it. There's no telling how many I've sold. It's called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, who was the lead hostage negotiator for the FBI. And it's not easy to talk, people into giving up a hostage. And so they have some incredible skills that they've learned and that they've taught. And they're now teaching those skills at Harvard and other places. And so, yeah, I mean, learn about that. I just found out, and I don't know if I should say this, but I just found out that Heather Chastain, that we all know and love, right, just taught a class, if you want to call it that, to the people in the home office on emotional intelligence. And that's what we're talking about, right? So study emotional intelligence, study those skills, and study the ability to deal with and have these conversations with people. And I just think, it's one of my absolutely current favorite topic, right? And I won't get into it, but it's present. It's not about presentation. It's about the conversation. That's what it's about. Get really good at the conversation. Anyway, that's that.
More to come on that. So
More to come.
thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dan. Dan has been in great demand, as you can see why. And he has given so generously of his time to lots and lots of folks in the field. So we just really felt it was important to capture this, get it recorded so it'd be available for all of you. So thank you. Thank you all for joining us, and stay tuned for our next program.
Thank you.
Good night, Dan. Many thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.